of the Dirty Air series and then the fine print. It could be quiet most of the time. But if I was writing, for example, my parents' house, there was, if someone woke up in the middle of the night, I kind of would write really early in the morning or very late at night. So there weren't a lot of disturbances. But this Terms and Conditions was the first book that I wrote actually in a different city. I moved to a whole different city. So I think there was just a lot of changes that happened that I was more isolated. And I think that that impacted my ability just to be able to produce as quickly as I was, because I was used to a Dirty Air producing like a book every, I think, 3 to 4 months. And then this time I took a step back.
The reason that I'm nosy about your living conditions is because it seems, you know, just watching your progression as an author, starting from Throttled all the way to Redeemed, it's your confidence, your voice is clear. It's crystal clear. By the time you get to Terms and Condition, we know that we're reading a Lauren Asher book. It's just there's so many indications throughout the book that you are reading a Lauren Asher book. And for me, the reason that Redeemed is my favorite is because you take on a very complex subject and you write it with ease and it shows. Me as a fan, when I got to Redeemed, I thought, yes, like this, I am so glad that you have found your voice as an author. And then now as well, the fine print and then by extension, Terms and Conditions, it was so exciting because it was very much your voice and it was your, I hate to say the word brand, but
Mhm.
I'm super excited just to kind of had the pleasure to kind of watch your progression as an author, because you can tell that Terms and Condition for me is your best work. It is. I was kind of going through my highlighted parts, and like I was telling you, like there's a point where I've highlighted an entire page because nothing was unimportant. Like there were
Mhm.
parts where it's like every other sentence was highlighted because it was good, it was funny, it was clever, and I'm like, yes, I'm so glad that you're here. I love it. I love it.
Oh.
So yeah, that was my little fangirl
I
moment.
love it. No, I had a huge smile while listening to you because I do feel like Redeemed was when it clicked. Like this is what I want to write. I want to take
Right.
people to more complicated subjects, write it in the best
Hmm.
way I possibly can in that moment with what I know and all the research I do. And I want it to be funny, have some sad
Hmm.
parts, you know, hit you with different emotions, anger you, kind of just make you feel this whole spectrum and like take you on a journey. And I feel like that's what I realized once I got to Redeemed. And I feel like I'm glad you noticed that with then the fine print and Terms and
Hmm.
Conditions, because that's where I felt like I knew who I was and what I wanted my readers to feel when they picked up a book by me.
Yeah. And the tone of Dirty Air is a little lighter because it's energetic. You just can't help feel this sort of energy about obviously the environment of the book, but then you go into Terms and Condition and Terms and Condition and fine print, and it's serious. It's a little heavier. The stakes are higher, and it's energetic in a different way, it's exciting in a different way, and the characters are challenged in a different way, and I love that. I love how, you were able to take a very light, very fun series and then move on to a series that is a little heavier. It's more, not to say that Dirty Air doesn't have, like, adult, I don't wanna say adult themes, but, like, it's much more it's much more whimsical. It's playful as a series, but then, Terms and Condition is much heavier. There's more writing in these characters and in the plot. And just sort of talk about Dirty Air for one more second.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that you'll write, like, the next generation of drivers, like their kids maybe?
I will tell you, this is possibly my most frequently asked question. I
I'm
get
sorry.
no, no, no. I get DMs about it. I think almost every day I at least get one DM about are Marco and Stella gonna have a story. And I have told readers that I will go back into that world and it will be a new world. So I will say it's gonna have its separation from Dirty Air. While I haven't planned it, I do know, especially since my writing has just changed and it's just evolved in a good way, like I feel. And I read some of my reviews and what people say, so I just think it will have different themes and potentially I have no idea. Each book is a journey, and I truly have no idea when I sit down at the computer what I'm going to start the first chapter with. I'm not a big plotter, so I will write it. I'm not sure as to when it is coming out. I'm hoping 2023 would be a dream, but I
Mhm.
don't like to promise release dates until I have the book written.
That's fair. That's a good thing because people will hold you accountable because we love it and we're sort of waiting for anything that you have for us. And I guess my next question is let's talk about terms and conditions. Okay?
Mhm.
Let's talk about
Okay,
this this book, Laura.
let's do it.
You had the pleasure of being front row to my every single reaction of this book.
Yes.
I love this book. I adored this book. Um, so for those who don't know, Lauren, tell us what terms and conditions is about.
I'm gonna try to give an elevator pitch on it. I thought about it. What is it about? So, Declan is the oldest brother that you meet in the fine print. He is by far not the nicest brother. That would probably go to Cal. But Declan is tasked by his grandfather to complete part of the will to get his inheritance. And that will states that he needs to get married and have a child. And in particular, he needs to get married within like a year, and then, the child comes after, preferably. So Iris is his assistant, and she is tasked with having to find him this wife that will be willing to have his child, get married to him, and he's not the nicest person. So she has trouble doing so and ends up in this whole little process volunteering to become his wife. And the story is their journey from going from boss and assistant to exploring this like fake marriage, this relationship that they have to put on in front of other people while trying to kind of battle their own internal demons, their past, relationships they've had to come to grips with, and kind of rely on each other and start just growing from that to friends to the type of romance you love to see, I hope.
And I do want to just touch on the fact that Iris is Black. She is a very accomplished Black woman. She's obviously been able to keep up with a very high demanding boss. Declan is not an easy character, and by extension, not an easy boss. And she has, kept up with him. She's pretty much his equal, and that is mentioned several times, and he acknowledges that several times. But there is an ease in which Iris's character is delivered in the book, and I think that's obviously a testament to you as an author, but also by extension to your beta readers and your sensitivity readers. So, how important was that process for you in order to bring us an authentic Black character that wasn't tokenized?
So, really, without my sensitivity readers, my editor, and then my beta readers, I think that the book really wouldn't be what it is without them, because all of them had different input and ways to add to her character and little things that they would want to see, especially the sensitivity readers, in a character like Iris that could help them connect with her. Because while I'm not Black, I really wanted to incorporate those elements that I might not know of that I could be able to write about. So, for example, something as small as Iris uses a silk pillow, that was really meaningful, and I've added it, and it was such a small thing, but it helped readers, and they messaged me about it. And even my sensitivity reader loved it, and they gave me suggestions like, hey, I think, for example, like you can mention this. There's a line of, you know, really just trying to show the differences between Declan and Iris. And even though they're equals, there's a lot that they're just different. And that's to be expected with his character. So their input was crucial, I would say, to bringing her to life.
I really like that point that you just made about the details. And there's a moment in the book where she wakes up from bed and she takes off her bonnet. And that was the most natural thing for me to read because, of course, she would. right? And it wasn't something that I needed to be reminded of, because there were several times consistently, and the character was so well defined in my mind that I knew that she was a black woman. That did not need to be repeated by other characters or by her inner monologue, because like no one wakes up and thinks I am insert minority here. Like if you're Muslim, you know that you're Muslim. If you're, Hispanic or Latino, you know that about
Mhm.
yourself, right? And I think it's super important as well, because the inner dialogue is so important. Of course, there are moments where, the fact that she's black is highlighted, it's relevant. So good on you for highlighting it in a very appropriate way, and it fit perfectly. And you know, shout out to your sensitivity readers and your other beta readers who were very diligent in that matter. I think it's super important.
Yes.
And I just want to add one more thing. It's also like a lot of people just want to see themselves represented in a very successful way, like young black girls that look up to characters like Iris. Like as sort of unlikely it may be to fall in love with a billionaire, just having that possibility be available in fiction is amazing. Like, am I making sense? I feel
Yeah,
like
I would
even
wanna
though
fall
it's
in love with a
fictional,
billionaire. Yeah. My
right?
poor boyfriend, he
Exactly.
would not be happy, but yeah.
No, and I saw a TikTok today by someone who's like, "You're telling me a black woman gets, bent over by a billionaire?" And I'm like, "You know what? Yes, as she should, That
Yes.
why not?"
Yeah,
So,
I think it's really with all my characters, I ask, like I've asked before, some readers will actually message me and be like, "Will you write a character like this? I really want, someone from, South Asia, for example, or like someone of this certain descent and this cultural background." And it means so much to me that people reach out to me and trust me to do those things, and with that there comes a big responsibility every time I decide in my head like what character am I going to write, to represent them as best as I can and find the sensitivity readers. I actually created a whole like beta forum, and because there's other themes too, of I also try to highlight, for example, like neurodiversity, so other types of disabilities, learning differences, whatnot. So like putting out polls of, hey, I'm looking for this type of sensitivity reader, someone who has knowledge of working with learning difficulties, someone who could be identifies as POC, et cetera, to really get other input, because that's how I want to do my job, is making sure I can, I guess, have as much intel to make the best character.
yeah, and it definitely shows. It shows. Like there is a diligence, there is a grace in which information that you may not know about is, presented to us as a reader. So thank you, and I can't wait for people
Okay.
to read this book. But let's talk about the book. Let's talk about terms and conditions. First of all, where do I begin? It was it was amazing. It was so fucking good. Like it was so good. I don't know what to tell you or how to formulate myself or my sentences, but okay. So, out of all your characters, Santi is my favorite male character, and
Mhm.
Iris takes the cake. I love all the other, dirty air girlies, love them to death. However, Iris, in a league of her own. She is smart. She is clever. She is sharp as a whip. Oh, just the dialogue, the way that she is sarcastic and professional and has this delicate balance of being professional and being like funny and confident without crossing. Obviously, there are parts in the book where the line becomes very blurry and pretty much unseen. But at the beginning, when she's still trying to manage this contract that she got herself into, just the way that she kind of, how can I put this? She is like very good at managing Declan. Like, see, she is his
Mm.
snake charmer, and though he's come to
Oh,
he's
that's a
come
good
to
one.
rely on her on pretty much everything. So
Hmm. Even the printer.
even the printer, everything, 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 and I just I loved her so much. I love Declan, of course, but I think yeah, Santi will always have